Unsyndicated presents What the Puck with Sean Baligian.
What is up? We are in our own dwellings today, just hanging out, getting ready for game number 2. He's Mike. I'm Sean. So glad you can join us. Mike, tell everybody what you did. You did some things at your own home today. You could see the accompanying pictures on Twitter as well. Some good pictures. But Mike, what did you do?
I went down to Bush's. I picked up 6 beef short ribs. And I put them on the grill, and I told you they took between 6 to 7 hours with a little bit of the rib rub on there. And then I bacon wrapped 2 of the Dearborn sausage, Cajun sausages with a little sugar-free spicy barbecue sauce, crisped up that bacon, and threw those on there. It's grilling season for me, Sean. You know that. I'm off work for the next 2 months, so the grill is on.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? For what it's worth, I did some conies with my daughter. Just did some homemade conies. It was all good. Nothing wrong with that. Of course, game 2 of the Stanley Cup Finals. First of all, let's go back to game number 1. We did our little wacky pregame show as opposed to doing it afterwards. I kind of liked it that way. We're probably going to do it again Saturday. Unfortunately, Mike, you can't be there, but congratulations to your niece, right? Your niece is getting married?
Yeah, my niece is getting married. We're going to have a good time.
Yeah, good times. But Mike, the first 3.5 minutes, Edmonton was all over them. I mean, all over them. You saw a Bob moment. You saw Edmonton's speed. You saw them literally setting up camp in the zone. And the most demoralizing thing is one opportunity the other way and in the back of your net. And I'm convinced that kind of set the tempo for the night.
It did. And it was a shame, like you said. Edmonton came out and did exactly what they needed to do on the road. They came out, they're all over them. They were by far the faster team. They were dominating. They make one simple mistake. Unfortunately, I think this is a guy that will be two guys we'll be talking about a little bit here today in CC and Nurse. Make the wrong defensive play. And you can almost see McDavid as he's back checking on that, kind of puts his hand up like, what are you doing? Nurse goes inside the dot, which forces CC over. One pass over to Barkov with the speed that there's no way that McDavid's going to catch. Another pass, Verhaeghe gets that goal. But what you said, 100% demoralizing.
Mm-hmm. You know, Eric said beer hockey playoffs, I'm set. Nick, you stole my thunder, but I'm going to say it anyway. Oilers have to almost mentally beat down after a 3-0 shutout, and they dominated on shots on goal. The thing that I would be terrified of right now, and we all, I'm sure, know a few Oiler fans. I know a couple. The thing that I would be terrified, and I said this to both of them, Mike, is Florida played crappy. That was not a good game by the Florida Panthers. That was not the Panther hockey that we've become accustomed to. And I'm not even talking about the playing heavy and you know, sandpaper and stuff. I'm even talking about, you know, the way that they changed it up and really dominated the Rangers. They didn't have a whole heck of a lot, and they won 3-0. So the guess here is they're going to come out flying. There's nothing like a teachable moment after a win. Who wants a teachable moment after a loss? If I'm Paul Maurice, I'm pounding these guys, pounding them. What the heck was that? Do you know how lucky we were that we won that game? You should all buy Bob a present. My guess, Mike, heading into game number 2, Florida's going to come out flying.
Absolutely. I trust Paul Maurice. I don't think he had to say too much. All you have to say in that moment is you walk in that locker room, Sean, you say, you just played the worst game you've played all playoffs and came out ahead. It ain't going to happen again. And they're going to make some changes. They were way too aggressive. Me and you were pointing it out with Coach Hunter, how aggressive they were on that forecheck, and they got caught several times. And their D got caught up in it too. How many breakaways can you give up? Without Bob, that this is a totally different game. It might be 3 or 4 nothing the other way because he stole that game 100%. Him and Barkov. Barkov was incredible.
There were 3 in a period and a half, right? And wasn't it 3? And why these guys decide that they're going to go to the backhand deke is beyond me, because it all you have to do is watch the game a little bit. Bob is tremendous. If you go down low on him, he moves so well laterally. Bob is tremendous that way. And 2 out of 3 times they decide to go low on him, and he's going to eat that all day.
Absolutely. And if you watch it, Sean, if you watch the highlights of it, I obviously having the day off, I was watching a lot of them. He is so confident and calm in his movements. There's nothing like he's rushing to get side to side or over pushing or overdoing anything. He is calm. He's smooth. He's right there on the right angles. But the problem we're going to see here is, and it's the Dominic Hasek effect that me and you have talked about before, where they're going to try to squeeze it in perfectly over his shoulder now. How many shots do you think go over the net tonight? Because they have to go high tonight.
Yep.
They were getting eaten up low. And I wouldn't be surprised. We're going to see some traffic in front. They've got to get dirty in front of that net. He's seen too many of those shots.
You know what was interesting? It's funny you bring that up, because there was the contact early in the game. I thought in particular the first couple periods, and you didn't see it so much in the third period. You bring up such a great point, because I think what happens, and we want to get to some of your comments, what you saw in game 1, what you think for game number 2. That's why we're doing this. Chances are you're just like Mike and I. More often than not, we're together. Tonight we're not, but we're together in the sense that we're here and we're going to be watching the game too. But the problem is, when you have a goaltender like Bob, is you start to think too much. And you hit the nail on top of the head. You see it at all levels of hockey, okay? When a guy starts renting a little space up there, every shot you start aiming a little bit. And so you're a couple feet high, you're a couple feet wide. I'm going to be really intrigued to see if we're at that point tonight, because no doubt about it, Bob was in their head in game number 1.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's no different than your pitchers when they're trying to throw a strike. They're not throwing the ball as fast as they can. They're not going to hit those corners. Shooters are the same way, and Bob's in their head. The good news for Edmonton is they've got world-class shooters on that side. McDavid, Hyman, and Draisaitl are probably 3 of the best guys that you could want to kind of break this slump. I myself, like I said, I still like Edmonton. I like their game. I thought they, outside of Bobrovsky and Barkov, I thought they dominated and had a really good game. Tim here saying, sounds like Edmonton is nowhere near in Florida's class the way we're talking. I'm not going to go there. The only class that I think Edmonton is missing that Florida has is the experience of being in the situation they're in right now, which is playing for the Stanley Cup.
Yep. No question about it. Now, look, I think there's more sandpaper, but they remember what happened last year. I mean, they were the cute little story last year, and Vegas just steamrolled them. I mean, make no mistake about that. They steamrolled them. In fairness, they were beat up a little bit, and certainly Matthew Tkachuk was a broken man, but they remember what that was like last year. And I'll say it again. And here's the funny thing: Skinner hasn't played poorly in quite some time now. I mean, really, from about the midway point of the Dallas series, and I'm not going to hang him for those 2 goals, especially that second goal where Darnell Nurse was simply put a passenger. I mean, he literally, he just decided, I got a good view at the puck. I'm going to watch the puck there.
I love the angle I saw of it this morning. There was 2 passengers on there, and it's one guy that I wanted to talk about was Evander Kane. Evander Kane just let him go right through Rodriguez, go right through the slot. He was gliding right next to him. And if you remember when we were doing our pregame before game 1, I brought up Kane could kind of equalize them in their grit and that sandpaper kind of stuff. He didn't do anything. He didn't skate this morning. Rumors are out there that he's hurting a little bit more than he'd like to admit. So that could be huge, just in the fact that he can't play up to 100%.
A couple other comments. Somebody said that Avs hat has to go. Mike, you've had that on for a while, though. In fairness to Mike, he's had that on for a while. Zach says, "Hello, friends." Hello, friend. Every game can change. I think 6 wouldn't surprise me. 7. Bill's saying Oilers in 7. Eric said, "Mike, what pictures do you have on your wall?" See, now we can do that. Mike, what do you have behind you?
So I've got Corey Perry, relevant to the game, fighting Pavel Datsuk over
The
here.
two big
Autograph.
goons. Yeah.
Brett Hall game use stick sign. And Sean, let's see if you can hit this one. It's kind of in unison. It starts here and then it ends there. Can you pick that one?
No, I can't see it real well. I don't get a
That's
good view of it.
That's Jason Arnott's game-winning goal, Stanley
In
Cup.
2000?
Yep.
Yeah.
Autograph, and then right up there again, he autographed the celebration.
Do you remember who the coach was of that team?
Larry Robinson.
Had to get that in there.
Absolutely.
Zach said that second goal was not stoppable. Absolutely. Let me say it again. I'm not hanging Skinner in any way, shape, or form. There was a time to bash Skinner, and that time has passed. Now, does that mean that I have full confidence in him? I don't know how anybody could say that, but I think there's a difference between, going, "Ooh, this guy's really struggling." He's not struggling right now.
No.
Let's put it this way. Bob's been better. Bob was outstanding in game number one, but you can't hang Skinner for those goals. You can't do that.
Not at all. Bob's been unbelievable the last two playoffs. But as far as Skinner, if you go back and watch that game, he also made 2 or 3 goal-stopping saves. Like we thought they were going in. We were up out of our seats. But I wrote down some numbers here just to get on to take that pressure off of Skinner and put it on the two guys we've been talking about in CC and Nurse. So in the last 167 minutes, they've been on. Oh, let's see. They have been on the ice for 12 goals. Okay. Now the rest of the team. So they've been. I got to get this straight. I apologize, guys. 167 minutes. The Oilers have been outscored 12-4 while they're on the ice. The rest of the time, when they're not on the ice, the Oilers have outscored the other teams 27-15. So that and who was on the ice for those 2 goals were those 2 guys, and they were glaring mistakes. I mean, we're guys that have been around the game and watched the game. That's totally noticeable when you do that. And so what we're going to say is exactly what you're saying, Sean, is we're not putting that on Skinner at all.
No. It's interesting. Our buddy Kirk Hunter, who will be here Saturday. Hey, Coach, sent us this thing, lowest rating in single playoff year NHL history, plus minus. The great Paul Reinhart, remember him?
Yes,
was a minus 16 in the 82 playoff.
What?
Mike Rathje was a minus 15 in the 95 playoff. Tom Peterson was a minus 14 in the 95 playoff. Darnell Nurse right now is a minus 15. A minus 15 on a team that's in the Stanley Cup Finals. That's almost impossible. I mean, think about that, Mike. That's almost impossible. It really is.
And they're taking CC out of the lineup, and I don't see his name up there, right? I mean, they're going to make a change, and I get it. I mean, this guy makes $9.5 million a year. It's tough to pull that out of the lineup. But I was talking to someone last night, and I said, this is funny because people will say that Darnell Nurse played well against Dallas, right? He was a minus 10 in the first 2 series. So a minus 5 and a minus 5, if we're just going to break it up and make it even. His improvement to say that he played well, he was a minus 3 against Dallas. I mean,
but you know what, Mike, honestly, I thought from the time that series was 2-1, I just thought they battened down the hatches. And like we talked about on Saturday night, is that I don't want to take anything away from Skinner. I don't want to take anything away from really the total team defense. But is that a byproduct of that or a byproduct of Dallas just running out of gas? And I'll say it again. I love you, Pete DeBoer. I'm a big fan. I think you know that. You're not being 100% upfront when you tried to say that your team wasn't gassed. The team was gassed. They were. There's no doubt. I get it. He's going to get his teams back, but clearly, anybody that was watching that series, the Stars were gassed.
Yeah, they were totally done. They got outscored 11-2 after that comeback. I mean, that is what we wanted to see. Was it Dallas's gas or was it Edmonton locking down? The good news for Edmonton is they still locked them down. I mean, they had like what 10 shots going into the third period of Florida. So
Yep.
they were limiting their chances. The problem is when you have a team like Florida, they've been there, they've done that. They took two little mistakes and buried them. And then
Couple
Bobrovsky comes.
Couple other questions I want to throw out there that we were talking about. Let me read some comments. Jim said the big thing to me is Florida has been playing playoff hockey, gritty, nasty style all season long. Mike, you and I talked about that in February. That's why I liked Florida starting back in February. The crazy thing is we didn't see that in game one. And I that's why I say woe be to the Oilers tonight. I think Florida's going to get back to basics. Bill said first team to 3 goals wins every game this series. Jim said, Sean, get me his Avs hat. Mike would make a deal, Jim. Wait,
Oh, absolutely.
Are you
Absolutely.
prepared to barter? What are you prepared to do?
Yeah,
Go
right.
all Sean Connery on him, right?
Yes, and back to your point about Florida in Game One, they really stopped a lot of their shenanigans when the Rangers series started because they know you had the Rangers at the time were the number one power play in the playoffs. They knew they couldn't do it. They know they cannot put Edmonton on the power play. They did too many times last game, but they got away with it. I don't think they're going to get away. I don't think they're going to get away with it again. But that gets back into we don't believe Florida played anywhere near their best game.
Yeah. Nope, not at all. Gordy, I'm happy for Perry. Dude's a Hall of Famer, and it looked like his career was ending poorly. Instead, he goes out playing in the finals. Unbelievable run by him to be on all those teams in a row. Corey Perry is one of those guys. I've said this 100 times. I saw him up close and personal in junior. He was a phenomenal junior player. You don't appreciate Corey Perry until A, you see him a lot, or B, he plays for your team. I would go to war with Corey Perry anytime. I will stay. And all those things you say about him are true. He's a rat. He's a weasel. He's got a rat face. All those things. Everything. I'm not going to dispute one of them. You don't appreciate that guy until you watch him closely or he's doing that stuff for your team. There's no other way to say that.
And I think it's underrated that people don't mention about how good he was. This is an MVP. He won MVP. I mean, this guy was unbelievable, and he's totally transformed his game to just I'm a fourth liner, I'm a grinder. Now he's 100% rat. Like he always has been. He was always there, but it's underrated the way he's transformed his game as age has hit him, and he knows his limits.
It's interesting. I wanted to throw a few things out there today, and Mike, one of the things that I wanted to throw at you. And listen, I know that a lot of people want to put the cart in front of the horse with the Red Wings. I do. And in my mind, this was going to be a 5-year plan. I said it once. I said it 378 times in the past 4 years. Don't put the cart in front of the horse. If you're following along, we're 5 years in. So I think a lot of questions will be answered this upcoming season. The question that I wanted to pose to all of you out there, and in particular you, Mike, is how close is this Detroit Red Wing team? And when I say how close is this Detroit Red Wing team, I'm not talking about being the cute little team that starts a brand new streak and everything. I'm talking about a cute little team that you're looking at as Eastern Conference champions, as being in the position that the Florida Panthers are in. Because I'm going to tell you this right now, okay? And Mike, if I may go first, as I watch these playoffs, I honestly, it's almost shocking to me via eye test how far off the Red Wings are right now. And there's one word why I say that, and it's team speed. Team speed.
Okay.
That's not to say that there aren't speedy pieces, okay? But team speed, the pace that these guys go at, okay? The Red Wings seem like they're in a different league. Mike, I hope I'm not being over exaggerative when I say that.
No, I don't think you're being over exaggerated. I think you're hitting it right on the head. And when you tell me if this is what you're saying, because this is what I'm hearing. When you say overall speed, because this NHL game is a fast game, these guys have speed, but it's being able to play with skill at speed.
Yep.
So when people hear speed, they're going, "Oh my God!" Dylan Larkin was we got so they can play fast. They
There
can,
are
but
pieces. Absolutely. Yep.
they can't
Yep.
play skilled that fast.
Yep.
There's so many things. I mean, they show a little bit of grit, but I mean, you go to the goaltending, the defense, but that's me. You go ahead and continue.
No, and I think, look, there's no substitute for speed in this game. There just isn't. I don't care what anybody says. All right. There's a reason why there are so many guys, and you know who I'm talking about, that have little to no skill and zero hands whatsoever. I mean, the epitome of stone hands that can play in this league for a long time because they have that speed to burn. And this is a team that, as you said, Mike, Dylan Larkin can go. Lucas Raymond can go. There are pieces that can go, but I'm talking about as a unit that's going to start in their own end and just be eye-popping and get in a track meet with another team. And I've seen a couple. The final four teams are way better than the Wings. Jim said far from it. Speed and sandpaper. It is amazing to me watching, in particular, the last couple rounds, trying to put what the Red Wings are on the ice with either Rangers or Florida in the East, or in particular the teams out West. And I just say to myself, they're pretty far away.
Yeah, I mean, the list is long. It's unfortunate. We talked about this before, and I felt like I was bagging on them. But from speed to sandpaper to defensive depth to offensive stars that are going to run it, we have some nice pieces, right? And now that Kane's going to walk out that door, most likely, we don't have what we even had then. And then just overall depth, especially on the backside. To me, Sean, I think you guys said they were bordering playoff. I don't have these right now as we sit with this roster right now. I don't have them even as a playoff team. And to even picture them against the Rangers in the seven game series, which we almost got, right? That was almost the first round matchup this year. People would have been woken up real fast there. Or against the Oilers or against Florida. Sean, it's far away. Hey, free agency's coming. I don't know what's coming out. The draft is coming. Maybe there's some trades coming in. The problem right now is that I think Red Wing fan is realizing is we've always had that, like, oh, what about this guy? What about this guy? These guys are going to be good. That potential, which means you haven't done anything yet, is what potential is. But the problem is, back in the day, Sean, we were loaded down in Detroit. It didn't matter if those guys hit it. It didn't matter if Anthony Mantha did anything. We were winning Stanley Cups. Now those guys have to hit for us to even sniff these other teams.
Nick said it is night and day watching the Wings try to just get into the playoffs compared to what I've seen these teams playing. Andreas Athanasiou equals speed. I have to say the earliest, if they get lucky, is 3 to 4 years. Eric said, Mike, what are you drinking? That's a good question. Mike, what are you drinking?
A little tequila and soda.
Good for you.
Yep. Little
now, Mike, can I say this? My jaw's not going to drop if they're a playoff team next year. It's not. My jaw's not going to drop. There is such a massive cavern. Grand Canyon between hooray, we got in the playoffs, we're interchangeable with 3 or 4 other teams, and being a team that can go to the Eastern Conference Finals and God forbid go to the Stanley Cup final. Okay. And I know what everybody says. I've heard it 1,000 times. And sorry, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to use the Habs as an example. What the Habs did 3 years ago is such an exception to an overall rule. And again, they had a guy who remembered that at one point in time, he was one of the best goaltenders in the world, suddenly played that way. Well, the Red Wings don't have that guy either. I mean, the way Carey Price played, and then he woke up in the Stanley Cup final, the way he played and the youthful exuberance and the speed in which they play, which, by the way, they're a faster team than Detroit. Make no mistake about that. That's an exception to a rule. You're just not going to get that very often. I know what people love to do is they love to point out the exceptions as opposed to the rule. Well, sure, there's a cute little team that made a run. Sure, and who can forget the Kings turning around their season going back to 2012? those are all exceptions to a greater overall rule. What you usually see happen to 7 and 8 seeds is, well, what happens to 7 and 8 seeds? I just don't think the Red Wings have that run in them and have, quite frankly, the talent yet to make one of those runs.
Right, and it seems like there's some realistic fans here in our chat, but not many Red Wings fans are as realistic as like you are talking about that run the Habs made 3 years ago. Now, if you could imagine that the Habs making that run, if that was the Red Wings, how crazy it would have been here, and we're the greatest thing coming now. They would not be able to see that that was the exception, right? So you're 100% right, and I wouldn't be surprised if they made the playoffs. But I will say that with they've got to add some pieces. The roster as is right now, I'd be shocked if they made the playoffs. Now,
Nick said,
see how
oh, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
Nick said we had some false hope last season thinking the Wings are somewhat close. I think so. I do. I think that it's not the popular opinion. If the goal, and I'm using Steve words, mind you, these aren't my words. So if you want to get mad at me, I know it's easier to get mad at me. Steve said the goal wasn't to get in the playoffs. It was to get this team back in the position that they were when he was playing. And I agree with that. That's what should be the goal. They aren't close to that yet. It isn't just about getting in the playoffs, and they aren't close to that yet.
No, and I mean, and we talked about it a lot as our show began, and as we went on up into the playoffs. Right now, was that we thought the Wings, when they were making that run, they were going to make the playoffs, but we were very realistic. They were not getting past that first round,
Nope.
and it could be a real quick first round for them. So that's the difference. That what does that even mean? That just shows you're going in the right direction, but that's nothing to be celebrated.
Ted said, what is the long-term plan and goal for Detroit? That, to me, is the biggest hole they have, is Sebastian the guy. I'm just telling you what I heard, and I've said this for months now, and I'm going to say it again. I think, from what I'm hearing, a lot of people feel that Augustine may eventually be the guy. And Augustine is at least 3 years away. At least 3 years away. But we'll wait and see about that. Here's a good question. Does Maple Leaf win a cup before Detroit? I'm not saying that Maple Leaf's window is shut, Mike. Far from it. I'm not going to say that. But it isn't as open as we thought it was 3-4 years ago. It just isn't. You know, there are going to be some issues that hit that team very, very soon. Really, if they haven't already hit.
It's hitting Mr. Salary Cap, Mr. Untradeable Contract. They're all going to meet the Maple Leafs pretty hard there. I agree with you. I don't know if their window shut. They're going to have to work some magic in there, and that magic isn't Craig Berube. There's a lot going on there that I don't think he's going to be able to coach himself out of. And that's another one. Just like I'm saying with the Wings, with the Leafs, we have to wait and see what they're going to do. What are they going to do with Mitchell Marner? What are they going to do with Tavares? I mean, these guys have been absolute dogs in the playoff, and they're eating up $20 million, something around there.
I can't imagine Mitch Marner and Craig Berube cohabitating. I can't. I'm sorry. I just, and it was funny. They showed that picture, Mike. I don't know if you showed that. You saw that picture. Like somebody snapped a picture of them like sitting in a coffee shop in Toronto, and I was like, "Oh, to be a fly on the wall for that conversation. Wouldn't that be fun? Wouldn't that be fun?" Somebody said, "Please sign Stamkos." I would not want to do that as much as I love Steven Stamkos. I think that would absolutely positively screw up your cap and be counterproductive to what you've been trying to do for the last few years. The key was to get a lot of young talent in here, and out of that young talent, after 2-3 years, when they're all up for their contracts, you can decide at that point in time, we'll keep these two and we'll let that one go. I think that would be counterproductive to what Steve Yzerman's trying to do. One man's opinion.
No, it's two man's opinion. I agree with you. He'd be the last guy I would sign, and that's nothing against Steven Stamkos.
Love him.
I mean, I'm sure he's a heck of a guy in the room. He's going to be 100% a leader wherever he goes. I can't see him leaving Tampa, to be honest with you.
No,
but I don't want.
Kane or Stamkos? Kane, and I'll tell you why. You'll get him cheaper.
Yep.
That's why. Like honestly, you know how he fits. I think you know what to expect as well. I think the people that expect him, that tear he was on, maybe you're forgetting the last couple weeks of the season. I think, the water started to find its level, and he looked like a guy who, well, quite frankly, is his age and coming off the injury that he was coming off of. But I think that it would be, Mike, of course, always depending on the price. Patrick Kane has got to understand at this point in his career, with what he's gone through, he's just not going to get anywhere near the max money. And I think that reality has hit him the last couple months.
Right. That's what I was going to say. I think it's become quite obvious that that's what's happening. Everything you're hearing, all the rumor mill and everything going into there is that he was asking not only too much money but too much term too. So
Yeah.
something's got to give there. I'm still going to stick to. I know we haven't put this out on the show. We've talked off the show about it. That if he doesn't re-sign, especially with that price coming down, and depending on what he signs and where he signs, I think that speaks volumes about a few things. So hopefully we can get him at the right price and the right term, and not throw us into any more of cap hell.
Gordy said Kane can make more somewhere else. He could. He's just not going to get that Stamkos money. I think the Red Wings are in that position right now where they have to be smart. You can't throw out, anywhere near like a max type of contract. You just can't right now. I think that would undo basically the last 3 years of what Steve's trying to do. And yeah, to me, it's as plain as the nose on your face. He's going to get a bunch of young players, probably extend one with a nice bridge. Try to get, a good value on another one, and look to trade one of those younger ones for assets. That's pretty much the way that it would go. Wait a second. Let me see. Kane, power play specialist. Kyle Davis and the Hawks made hard decisions. They are looking forward, not back. Nick was in Chicago talking about Kane coming back. I just don't see that fit right now. I just don't. I don't.
I thought the article that just came out, as it was like clickbait, like it was trying to get you to click on it like they were going to. But if you really read through the article, it was more that they were not going to be. So that's not where they're going. That's not what they're going.
All right, we just got a couple more minutes. By the way, our mutual friend Jesse, the Oiler fan, said Darnell Nurse is -1 already. I'm just getting ahead of it. So there you go. We'll get that. All right, Mike. 31 years since a Canadian team won the Stanley Cup. I know a lot of people like to blame Gary Bettman for it. I'm 100% positive that Gary Bettman does not have some grand scheme. No Canadian team will win on my watch. Why? Why hasn't a Canadian team won in 31 years?
It is one of these where I could say that is a great question, because they have had some great teams. You go back to that Vancouver team we talk about in 94 was an incredible team. The easy answer for me, as time has gone on and the economy, we're going to get into the economy changes, and they just don't have the. If you look at what, let's just say, the Edmonton Oilers are working against when signing guys versus a team that Steve Yzerman built in Tampa Bay, where they get the taxes, and it's hard to get these guys. And then when you do hit the lottery with a Draisaitl and a McDavid, your cap is crushed. You're absolutely crushed, and it just makes it harder and harder. That to me is the easy answer of it, but it is a great question, because there have been some real good teams that have lost.
What's interesting to me, and I think the taxes and economy have something to do with it. And then when you got like the provincial tax, I know two guys, and I'm not going to mention their names, but two guys that absolutely positively love playing in La Belle Province and wanted to stay there, but said that the one thing that so many people talk about is not only the economy, but then how expensive it is, and that provincial tax, the Quebecois tax. Look, when you're taking money from multiple different things, It's a business. We have to remember that. At the end of the day, it's a business. And I know everybody loves to, oh, hometown discount, and this is where you were drafted and stuff. It doesn't work that way. For the amount of times we say it, maybe there's one or two guys that say, you can't put a price tag on happiness. Yeah, I'll stick around here for less and take a hit. It just doesn't work that way, and Mike, when I look at some of these franchises and some of the economic hardships that they've had to endure, I mean, like Ottawa legitimately should be a hell of a lot better than they are with a lot of the drafts that they've had and some of the pieces that they picked up. It's just been a disaster. That franchise has been a disaster, starting with, rest his soul, Melnick, and obviously, what has been going on since then. It is a disaster. So I think it is more a byproduct of the economy and some of these franchises taking the gun out of the holster and just shooting themselves in the foot. That doesn't mean, like you said, I mean, both the Vancouver teams, that Vancouver team in 2011 probably doesn't get the credit it deserves, that lost at home to Boston in game number 7, that, they obviously came really close. The Calgary team in 04, they probably deserved a better fate. It's really a perfect storm of circumstances, unfortunately, and a lot of them economically, that have precluded a Canadian team from winning the final.
Yeah, and as time goes on, as 31 years, if Edmonton doesn't do it this year, if it gets to 32, every year that's added on also puts pressure. As we were talking about during Game 1 with Coach Hunter, the pressure of an entire country is on your shoulders every time you go out there. And that gets into what you're saying, shooting themselves in the foot. Sometimes they think they have to make signings and do things that they don't necessarily have to do. But one of us has to win the cup eventually. And that pressure just grows, I think, every year and every year. And hopefully Ottawa, you're saying that they've got one of those teams that we expected a lot more out of this year when talking about young teams, right?
It's incredible.
These guys, but you can't. Ottawa's won over the last 4 years. They can't get out of their own way. I mean, even like right now, they can't get out of the way of, are they going to trade Kachuk and the rumors and this stuff go? It is just, it's hard to GM, play, own, do all of that in Canada.
Les Sabres de Buffalo, I'm going to include them. I mean, hell, they're right on the border anyway. That's another team. They just can't get out of their own way. And I read a list today where I think, if I remember correctly, they had in order, and this goes along the lines of what I've said for like 3 years. The Atlantic Division is going to do a flip real soon, but they had in order Buffalo, Detroit, and Montreal as the 3 best, futures and everything. And Buffalo, we've heard this for 10 years. It's incredible. Gordy brings up a great point, and you're not going to hear guys say this publicly, but many have told me privately, including a guy that we know. They all say the right thing when the camera's off, but when the camera's on, but when the camera goes off, the travel is brutal. When you're playing out west, when you're in Vancouver, when you're in Edmonton, when you're in Calgary, again, they're not going to say it with the camera shining. When the camera's off, they're going to go, dude, it's brutal. I mean, think about it. We have to fly back from Carolina. We have to fly back from Nashville. We have to fly back from Toronto. Jim said, what could the Columbus Blue Jackets have become without Tortorella destroying them? That's a great question. Oh, Tim, good memory with the Silver 7. Way to go. Ottawa's Silver 7 reset. That was one of my...
Another one. Hubie brought up what we were talking about the other day in our text thread, the 2017 Sabres. Some of the Sabres that have gotten away, you could add them to what they have, but they still have they still hired a dog of a coach. But that's for another day.
All right, before we get out of here, final score tonight, Mike.
I'm going to go 3-1 Edmonton. Edmonton is going to get off the schneid and actually score a 5-on-5 goal, which is something that they've only done once, I think, in the last 3. I think Edmonton was by far the better team the other night. I can't see Bob standing on his head that way again. I really like it. I like it. And I think, like I said, they're going to turn it on 5-on-5. And if they do, Florida fans need to be really worried.
4-1 Florida. Florida cannot play that bad again. I think it's the direct opposite.
I like your score better.
Yeah, 4-1 Florida. I think you're going to see them come out. Jimmy said 4-3 Florida in OT. Gordy said 3-1 Panthers. Really enjoy the pregame version. Appreciate you, Gord. Anyway, appreciate all you guys. Tony said 4-3 Florida. Listen, enjoy game number 2. Mike, we're going to be busy. We have something to do Wednesday night. Maybe you can do this Thursday. And unfortunately, you're not going to be here for brisket and pulled pork on Saturday.
Yeah, I will definitely be in Wednesday and Thursday. And you never know how weddings go. I may just pop in on my phone Saturday night for a little pregame.
Bring them all in, okay? We'll see you guys. Right. Enjoy game number 2. Thanks for tuning in.
What the Puck, featuring Sean Belegian. Produced by Todd Losey and Blake Matrazek. Executive produced by Sean Belegian and Todd Losey. Theme song and incidental music by Elliot Middleton. Engineering, mixing, and graphic design support provided by the Unsyndicated podcast team. Don't forget to like and subscribe to What the Puck on all your favorite channels. While you're there, be sure to rate and review the podcast. Got something to say to Sean? Call the Unsyndicated hotline at 248-237-3257.